Peace, blessings, and greetings. This is Sylvester Moore Eel from thctrust.org. So I'm making this video, I guess you can call it a marketing video, but as always, I'm just going to drop the science of what I know, and if you can't retain it all, or if you just want to support, or you want the guide for whatever reason, then you can purchase this guide directly from me using the information below this video. In this video, this is called Home for Free, version 3. This is the third version of this guide that I've written, and I believe that this version is more solid by far than the previous two versions. The previous two versions relied upon getting a court order per se, to protect your interest in the property, whereas this version we're pretty much dealing directly with the laws of adversarial possession. It's all about understanding your rights and then exercising your rights, but doing it in a strategic and a well thought out way so that you can be protected and so that you can avoid any type of harm coming your way. Some of the things you have to be careful of when you're doing a possession of an abandoned property is you want to make sure that you don't get hit with any criminal trespassing charges or anything like that. And most of that you will know, you're going to have to understand completely the circumstance of a property before you take possession of it. And the more that you know and the more research that you've done into the circumstances is the more comfortable you will feel taking possession of that property in a safe way so that no harm comes your way. And really, again, the law is on your side, so there's really nothing to be worried about. But I admit, I have more experience doing this. I have more research experience than anybody I know. And it is, you feel a little nervous. You have to put yourself in a right state of mind and understanding when you're just going to take possession of an abandoned property and hold it hostile against the owner who abandoned the property. And I use the term hostile because when you research adversarial possession, you will understand what the term hostile means. It deals with how you are holding possession of the property. But at no time are you to be hostile with your neighbors or the government or the police, anything like that. It's unnecessary. When you know your rights and you exercise everything accordingly, then you don't have to worry, per se, about those type of things happening. Now, let's see. What I can tell you, I can tell you anything. But I would say that the first thing that you do is, I guess you'll say, an eye test, right? That's the first. How would you identify abandoned property? Sorry, give me a second. My train of thought was thrown off for a second. So what I'm going to do, better yet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through the introduction of the guide. Well, I'll just go through it, basically. Before I go through the introduction, I'm going to go through the table of contents. Now, these table of contents, sometimes I write a paragraph about this stuff. Sometimes I just write a sentence or two. My objective and the goal with writing this guide was for somebody who's really going to go out and attempt this, just to give them the information that I know, what I've applied, what I've learned over the years of the different ways that this can be done, to give you a better idea of how to proceed, what to expect. But also this is a developing field, if you will, of adversarial possession in these times, that more things will be experienced. So, take that into consideration and build on top of what it is that I have that I can share with you. So I'm going to go through the table of contents. And so I have an introduction. Then I have adversarial possession, kind of just a definition of what it is. You can Google and understand better. Then we go through the common law requirements, the requisites of doing an adversarial possession. We talk about title by prescription and quiet title action. Basically, in a nutshell, if you are in possession of a property adversarially for a certain amount of time, you may be entitled to a title by prescription, which is a way that you can quiet the title with a title by prescription. It all depends on if you've held the property up into a certain amount of time as required in your jurisdiction with how they do quiet title action. Anyway, so I talk about title by prescription and quiet title, and my understanding of how these things relate when it comes to adversarial possession. I talk about insurance and clear title, because if you're in possession of a property under adversarial possession, you have to understand something about the title, because you won't have clear title, but you do have a title. What kind of title do you have? That depends on how you construct the affairs, right? So we also talk about, can a property be sold without clear title? Because in normal real estate transactions, having a clear title is a large part of the deal. You won't be able to get traditional financing from a lender if you don't have clear title. But does that mean the property can't be sold? No, it doesn't mean the property can't be sold. You might be selling it as is or under other terms or conditions. So we talk about, can a property be sold without clear title? Why did the previous owner abandon the property? These are some things that maybe you don't have to know, but it will help you in making a better, clear determination. Is this property abandoned, or what's going on with the property? Am I going to have any problems if I take possession of this property? So you could do some research on that. They have a lot of basically what you call it public records, websites that offer services where you can do public record searches on persons, addresses, and things of the sort, and that can help you answer some of those questions, as well as talking to the neighbors and other things. I'm just touching on some of the things that I discuss in this guide and the methodologies that I've learned. And again, this isn't legal advice. I can't give you legal advice because I'm not an attorney, and this is just based off of my experience and research. I talk about the importance of keeping your receipts and your paperwork. Let's see. What else is significant on here? We talk about dealing with controversy, right? What if somebody calls the police on you? Because it happens. I would say 50% of the time, if you're taking possession of a property, even if it's abandoned and nobody has no interest in it, it could be anybody. It could be a neighbor, might not be a neighbor. It could be somebody from the city. Might not be somebody from the city. It could be somebody just driving by. I'm going to tell you, 50% of the time, somebody will call the police. So have your own protocol. I write down kind of, I guess, what you would call a protocol. But, be prepared for that. Because, again, when you're in adversarial possession, you're the lawful possessor. The law is on your side. But if you don't do any research and you don't know what you're doing out there, and you just, you're not prepared, you could get hit with a trespassing charge, right? So that's really what this guide is about. Me just sharing my experience, putting you in the best position so that you can be successful in adversarially possessing a property. And the most recent thing that I'm kind of writing about in this guide that I'm kind of excited about, and there's more research that I'm going to continue to do in this subject matter or in this area, but is the idea of taking your title as an adversarial possessor and holding title in a trust and recording that properly, because doing that right there helps mitigate some of the issues of not having a clear title. Like, say you still want to some kind of way sell or convey your interest in a property, it's easier if you hold title to that property in a trust. So basically, after you do your acquisition, you'll take your title and you will place that title in trust, something like a land trust. It may or may not be a land trust, but you probably could use a land trust for what we're talking about. And all the different types of benefits that will have. You know what I'm saying? Again, I talk about that in here. That is the nature of my research. These are, this is what I put into, doing acquisitions of vacant and abandoned property. I also said dealing with controversy. That's important. Not only might somebody call the police on you, it could be, it could be a lot of different things. You may have to deal with controversy of somebody in the government, right? Somebody in the government. I really don't know any proper way to say this because I'm not trying to accuse. We want to take for granted that our public officials are upright and just. But in my experience, sometimes corruption could rear its head. You start taking a property, and maybe some real estate company will get mad at you, because you have to ask yourself, what happens to vacant and abandoned property? Somebody, and it happens to be the case many times because I've seen it, and one of my fellow researchers kind of pointed this out to me. She's an older sister, and she pointed out to me basically that what you have going on right now is, as part of this overall wealth transfer, that there is a very extremely wealthy American generation that is dying off, known as the baby boomer generation, and some of them didn't have children, or some of them didn't have children, didn't have heirs, and died intestate. And this is how sometimes property results in being abandoned. And again, what happens to it? Well, what happens to it is I'm going to use this term and say it ends up getting recycled and resold to you, whether it's through a real estate agency or whether it's through the government. As a matter of fact, in this book, I put some links in there that you can find in its articles where HUD talks about the vacant and abandoned properties and them being a problem for the city. And if you just kind of dig and you do research like I do, it's fact. You could call HUD, look up HUD homes or whatever, and you can see these properties and look up the history of properties. And, what's happening is the unsuspecting first-time home buyer goes and buys a house based on the comparable value of the houses in the area. And this house has already been paid for by somebody, and it's been lived in for 20 and 30 years, and there might be issues or whatever, but they're being suckered into buying houses based off of a comparable value when it's really maybe not so comparable. But neither here nor there, not to get off the subject. A lot of times it's going to be vacant and abandoned properties because people are going to die intestate and pass form, and the property is just going to be vacant. So it's important that you familiarize yourself with the laws and or the statutes and everything you can about your jurisdiction in regards to your right to acquire vacant and abandoned property or adversarial possession. So there you have it. That's the layout and the guide. I pretty much just share with you I would call it wealth of experience. Really, it's not much experience, but hell, who else has experience doing this, right? So there you have it. We talk about cutting on utilities, what you might record in the county. You got some different options, but ultimately you're going to have to strategically design and create a plan. Anyway, once again, there you have it. And I'm happy that I finally got this written again. This is Home for Free version 3. So if you want to pick up that guide, I appreciate it. I thank you for your support, because your support is going right into that house behind me, because that's the house that I'm working on right now. And that's another thing, that if you do decide to get into home acquisitions, just consider, and this is really, you really got to consider this. This is where I went wrong, before. You do all this work, from paperwork, documentation, making a plan or whatever, doing an acquisition on a property, to the point, let's just say, doing an acquisition on a property. And then you realize that, I don't have the pockets, I don't have the finance to do the work that this property is going to need to, the work that the property is going to need. And then you still got to pay expenses, tax delinquencies, or whatever else. You got to do administration fees too. So like, don't bite off more than you can chew. You got to be realistic. Now, I don't know what your goals are. Your goals might be, I don't know, pick up a couple of properties and rent them out or something like that. That wasn't my goal. My goal was just, I didn't think it was a fair trade-off. The 15 or 30-year mortgage plan and the 9-to-5 that comes along with it for property ownership. That just didn't work for me. But at the same time, I'm not, how can I say it? I'm not naive to the fact that what I'm doing is against an entire system that's set up a different way. So this is a very narrow path per se, and this ain't going to be taught anywhere. You're not going to hear about this in any seminars or anything like that, because it's just, that's not the that's not the order of the matrix per se. So I welcome and I appreciate your support. If you want to support the guide, you can get it with Bitcoin, PayPal, I don't know, whatever else you got. Let me know. If it's of value, silver, gold, it'll work. So thank you. And what I was gonna show you, I don't feel like going in there right now, but you can see this is the property. Now I gotta go figure out how to blur them numbers out, because I don't want y'all all in my business like that. You know what I'm saying? But I just had the house numbers on there, so I'm gonna figure out how to blur those out. And yeah, man. So appreciate you. Much love to everybody. So THC Trust, I'm still on it. I'm still in the background on the website, editing and working on things, and I'll continue to do that. What else? Yeah, I'm gonna start trying to do more videos. I'll probably do another video tomorrow about this same subject matter, just so we can get further along on it. Anyway, all right, y'all, hit me up. Peace.